Okay, good morning. Hi. I am going to do a book review, but before I do a book review, let me explain why I'm in my car. Excuse me. So, one of my goals this year is to get to 100 YouTube videos. And I realized that would be difficult if I'm constantly trying to make my videos look beautiful all the time. Because the reality of the situation is, you all will hear me say all the time, I work in retail, I have an 8-year-old son, and my schedule is all over the place. I cannot stress enough how much that impacts my ability to get things done. And I just get sick of it. I get sick of feeling like I am incapable of achieving things because I'm fixated on them needing to look like other things. And I'm over it. So when I was looking up how to do a book review, what is going on? How are people reading 93 books a year? Like, my top 50 books of 2024. Y'all, I am going to let you know right now, I read slow as hell. I read so slow. My reading goal for this year is 4 books. It is 1 book per quarter, because Sister Girl does not read that fast, 1. 2, I'm not about to stress myself out. The whole point of me reading is to get back into it and have it be a fun activity, a leisurely activity, all those things. So I finished my first book, and it actually took me a little over a year to finish this book. So let's get into it. I'm outside of my job. I start work at 9. It's probably 8:20 something. So it's not going to be a long video, but I was like, I can do this. And then I'm not going to edit it. I'm going to post it today, and we're going to call it even. Okay. So the book that I just finished reading was called The Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George. And it's a New York Times bestseller. It's like an Oprah.com kind of thing. I don't even remember where I got this book. I don't remember. Oh, here, let me show you. Okay. I don't remember where I got this book. There's a lot of cute little book libraries around my neighborhood, and sometimes I just stumble upon a book that looks interesting, and I'm like, hey, why the fuck not? I'm going to go ahead and read it. So the back of the book reads, Monsieur Perdue is a literary apothecary. From his floating bookstore in a barge on the Seine, he prescribes novels for the hardships of life. Using his intuitive feel for the exact book a reader needs, Perdue mends broken hearts and souls. The only person he can't seem to heal is himself. He's still haunted by heartbreak after his great love disappeared. She left him only a letter that he has never opened. After Perdue is finally tempted to read the letter, he hauls anchor and departs on a mission to the south of France, hoping to make peace with his loss and discover the end of the story. Sorry, I just got over a cold. He dispenses books in his wisdom along the way, showing that the literary world can take the human soul on a journey to heal itself. An international bestseller filled with warmth and adventure, The Little Paris Bookshop is a love letter to books, meant for anyone who believes in the power of stories to shape people's lives. I 1000% agree with the synopsis of this book. The reason why it took me so long to read this book is because there was, in my opinion, nothing really happening in the book. It was a very cute book. It was a very sad book. Not very sad, but it was sad enough. And though there were adventures occurring in the book, I never felt compelled to keep reading. It felt okay to put this book down for a month and then come and pick it back up. I didn't feel like I missed it when I wasn't reading it. I didn't feel like an urge to go sneak in the bathroom at work and take the book with me just to get to the next page. But it was not a bad book. It just wasn't my type of book. I don't really have a preference in books. I just read whatever looks interesting, whatever speaks to me, and I try my best to finish it. And this is a really good example as to why this book for me did not evoke the emotion that I thought it was going to evoke until like page 350. There's 370 pages in this book. It took until the literal end of the book, okay, for me to be like, tear. So, the book is about love and loss and overcoming that, grief, pride. I would even say challenging the traditionalism of what love in a relationship is. Purdue fell in love with the married woman, Manon. I think I'm saying her name right. It's Manon. And Manon, he knew she was married. Luke, Manon's husband, knew that she was going to Paris to see another man. But Manon had already felt in her soul and spirit that she was a woman who was meant to have many suitors. And when she just disappeared on Purdue, she found out she had cancer. She also found out she was pregnant, and she went back home to basically have her baby and die. Okay. And Purdue, being heartbroken and stubborn, he let 25 years go by. 25 years he did not live a colorful life. 25 years he was, holding on to resentment and just he was just upset, right? He had not allowed himself to grieve the loss of his love. And we're talking loss as in she just left him. He ain't know she was dead, okay? Because when he finally opened the letter 25 years later was when it was like catastrophic, right? Because we think that we have time to make amends. We think that we have time to say the things that we want to say. And lo and behold, we do not always have that time. So the adventures that he went on as he's traveling to the south of France, he's encountering different characters. Max is a character who's almost like a surrogate son for him. He is an author. Max comes along with him. He's having writer's block, and Purdue is basically like, you have to live life. You don't have anything to write about because you cooped up in your house all day, right? So they set out, and it's just taking him through the south of France as he's meeting new people. He's finding people. He's learning to heal. He's learning to admit that he's even hurt. He's learning to find himself again. And it's all very, very beautiful. It's beautifully written. I love the imagery. I love the descriptions of the characters. I feel like were done very well. It was just not enough going on in this book for me, but I did finish it. I was really proud of myself. But don't think that this took me, February something? Don't think this only took me a month. This took me over a year to finish because it was just so cute. I don't know how else to describe it because it's not a bad book. So my friend asked me what would I rank it, and I would give it a 7. I would give it a 7. Again, it's just not my style of book, but it was a good book. And I tried annotating. It's not something that I'm accustomed to. And I want to do it more. I used to annotate a lot more when I was in college, and I didn't know that I was annotating. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but it is something that I think I would like to do. It's really interesting. It's like highlighting words that I'm not familiar with, looking them up, learning a little bit more about the characters. I'm trying to finding different quotes that I really enjoyed. This one talked about lyrical medicine chest. And I kind of want to see if that's a real thing. So I'm going to just read it. Kastner had published a lyrical medicine chest from the poetic medicine cabinet of his works. This volume is dedicated to the therapy of private life, write the poet in the foreword. It addresses, mainly in homeopathic doses, the minor and major ailments of existence and helps with the treatment of the average inner life. And I wrote down, interesting, wondering if that's true. Meaning, I wonder if that's an actual book, because then I would go pick it up and just see what it's about, right? But I highlighted something else underneath it where it's like, Castner was one reason I called my book barge the literary apothecary, said Perdue. I wanted to treat feelings that are not recognized as afflictions and are never diagnosed by doctors. All those little feelings and emotions no therapist is interested in because they are apparently too minor and intangible. The feeling that washes over you when another summer nears its end, or when you recognize that you haven't got your whole life left to find out where you belong, or the slight sense of grief when a friendship doesn't develop as you thought, and you have to continue your search for a lifelong companion, or those birthday morning blues, nostalgia for the air of your childhood, things like that. And I think that is a good I think that is a good way to describe how this entire book feels. That is how I felt when I was reading the book. I was constantly being met with feelings of those things that are very tiny, but things that really take over the body when they arise, but also not enough to make me keep reading it at a rate that I felt like, oh my God, I gotta read this book. Like, it wasn't like that. Yeah, so I annotated a little bit, a tiny bit. And then I stopped because I was like, what am I doing? I hate writing in books. But I'm going to get better. There's some journal entries in here. There's one more part of the book that I wanted to read that I really appreciated. And it's going to help me carry how I choose books for the rest of the year. And it was really beautiful because at first it was the literary apothecary where he was diagnosing people. But at the end of his adventures, I would say, when he came back and found himself, how he engaged with books was different after that. And I don't think I marked the page. But I remember it and I was like, you know what? That's actually very beautiful. And I want to choose my books like that for the rest of the year. And what he was saying was books and food have a very similar, like, they're kind of in the same family if you think about it. And I thought that was so beautiful and so interesting because when he described it, I was like, I like that. And it was saying that, y'all, I cannot find it. I'm a wee bit sad. Okay, I can't find it. Anywho, what he was saying was that, how do you want your book to taste? And I just thought that was such a unique and beautiful way to describe choosing a book. Do you want it sweet and light? Do you want it decadent and rich? Do you want it familiar, like a favorite meal that you go to that's never disappointed you and it always gets you full and it makes you feel good? Do you want something junky, you know? And I really started to think about books and food in that way. And do you want to try something new, right? A new cuisine, if you will. And I'm glad that I encountered that at the beginning of the year as I'm re-embarking on my reading journey, because how do I want that book to taste? And I just thought that was the coolest thing that to think about when thinking about a book. Okay, so I came to pick up my son from school, and I wanted to finish the book review. So thinking about food as books and food, and how he described it in the book, which literally took the last maybe 2 chapters, was my favorite part of the book, and what I will be taking away in looking at books in that way for the rest of the year. My goal is 4, but I hope that I can read more, of course, but nothing too crazy. Another favorite part of the book for me was he went to her grave and felt like she wasn't there, and then remembered that she was everywhere. And I approach death personally because it's just been something that's so familiar to me, and I've had a lot of people pass in my life, as it's really, I'm really on the verge of, it's a physical death, and that's it. And he questioned her love for him, and in so many different parts of the book, when they're kind of going back and forth between Manon and Perdue's relationship, the beauty in loving somebody fully while also being in love with somebody else. And I think they did it very well. And showing how that can impact all parties, even though they didn't talk about Lucas much, her husband. And even when they did talk about him, when Perdue finally gets to go and see him, his hurt, Luke's hurt, was more from Perdue not acknowledging that he loved Manon as much as Luke loved Manon, and basically abandoning her on her deathbed and leaving her to die without fulfilling her last wish of all of them being together, and for her to be able to express her love to him. Even so much so that she left her journal with her husband to give to her lover in the event that he did come back, because she was just that hopeful. So it was a beautiful, very, very beautiful book. I'm not saying that that is not the case, but the reason I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 is just because it's not my preference of a book. I would say, if you are looking for a feel-good read, like when I think about books, I think about when I'm reading it, how I'm reading it. This book for me is a beautiful spring or summer read, when you want to be swooned, when you want to recover from losing love, whether that is through death or through breakup. I would read this book when I am looking for something to help me have hope after a long period of time, make peace with losing something after a long period of time, especially if it is love. It is remembering that life is still so rich and so beautiful, and it can still be lived even when you have lost something that meant so much to you. And it's a rediscovery of self for Jean Perdue, and him rediscovering who he is after that loss. And I think that is something that everyone can relate to in one way or another. And I think he is a very relatable character. He was very frustrating for me. He was very whiny. I was like, sir, get over it. But like, when you really think about a love that took over your mind, body, and soul, a deep love connection, sometimes it's really difficult to just get over it. So it's a great book. It's a 7 out of 10 for me. It was just a good book. I'm glad I read it. I like this. I like doing a little book review. This was cute. I haven't done a book review or a little book report since like grammar school, y'all. Since like grammar school. I will be doing all of my book reviews for any book that I read this year, and they will not be popular books. They will just be books that I wanted to read, and I'm just going to talk about them just like how I did today. I was looking at a lot of the book Instagrams and the book talks and the book YouTubes, and I'm just reading what I feel called to read or what looks interesting. And I don't know if these books are old. I don't know if these books are new. I'm not well versed in authors or anything like that. It's, again, if you've never heard me say it, YouTube is something that I just use to help me keep track of what I'm doing throughout the year, practice long form content, and watch myself on video. But that was the book, Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George. It was really good. Oh, and the cutest thing at the very end, before I forget, is they put some recipes and book recommendations in here based on the book. So I am going to probably make a video of one of these because lavender ice cream sounds delish. And my mom actually has an ice cream maker. And I feel like, and I have lavender that I picked and like, you know, plucked out or whatever from the summertime. So lavender ice cream may be something that I am definitely going to make. And then at the very, very end, it is Jean Purdue's Emergency Literary Pharmacy, From Atoms to Von Arnim. Fast-acting medicines for minds and hearts affected by minor or moderate emotional turmoil, to be taken in easily digestible doses between 5 and 50 pages, unless otherwise indicated, and if possible, with warm feet and or a cat on your lap. And I just think it's so cute. And it's books like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a trilogy in 5 parts, and it tells you like how to read it and when to read it. The Elegance of a Hedgehog, The Ingenious Gentleman, some name I can't pronounce. The one that looked really interesting that I may read. Oh, stop it. Eric Kostner. It is Lyrical Medicine Chest, but it's unpublished in English. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that. To see if they have it or if I can get it and read it or something. And then it's just very, very cute. Very, very cute. Bram Stoker's Dracula being on here is just always great because Dracula is one of my favorite love stories. I know people don't consider it as a love story, but it's a love story to me. And I love it, and I like to reread it over and over again. But yeah. Yeah, it's just a really good book. It's a good book. So that's it. On to the next one. Bye.